Welcome to our deep dive
Oh, a deep dive.
into Sir James George Fraser's The Golden Bough.
Okay.
This book is a classic for a reason.
Mhm.
It takes us on this journey through magic, religion, and mythology across cultures.
Yeah, Fraser was really trying to understand the roots of human belief,
Yeah.
like those patterns that connect us to our ancestors.
Exactly. And we're going to follow his lead,
Okay.
exploring how he links ancient rituals with modern folklore.
Oh.
We'll focus on themes of sacrifice,
Okay.
the spirit of vegetation, and the curious concept of the external soul.
Sounds interesting.
You ready to have your mind blown?
Let's do it.
All right, so Fraser starts with this mystery
Yep.
that sparked his whole exploration.
Mm.
The priest of Nemi, also known as the King of the Wood,
Interesting.
he lived in a sanctuary of Diana in Nemi, Italy.
Okay.
And the way someone became this priest was a bit intense.
To say the least.
Yeah.
A runaway slave could become the new priest,
Wow.
but only by breaking a bough from a specific sacred tree.
Oh, okay.
Then they had to defeat the current priest in combat.
It's almost like a deadly game of capture the flag.
Right.
And Fraser connects this back to the golden bough plucked by the hero Aeneas
Oh.
in Virgil's Aeneid,
Okay.
an epic poem from ancient Rome. It's as if myth and reality are overlapping.
What I find fascinating is that ritual combat for priestly roles wasn't unique to Nemi.
Oh, really?
Fraser found similar practices in other cultures,
Interesting.
and it wasn't simply about brute strength.
Right.
There's a deeper connection to the cyclical renewal of nature.
If the old priest dying represents the old year dying,
Yeah.
making way for the new, like a symbolic death and rebirth.
Exactly.
Oh,
The violence, in a way, was tied to this idea of regeneration.
that's a perspective I hadn't considered before.
Yeah.
Things get even more intriguing when Fraser brings in the story of Hippolytus,
Okay.
a figure from Greek myth.
All right.
Hippolytus was known for his purity and devotion to the goddess Artemis, but he met a tragic end, killed by horses. Oh, wow.
This story becomes relevant because horses were strictly forbidden within the grove at Nemi.
Seriously?
Why were horses such a big no-no in this context?
Right.
It seems so random.
That's the question that Fraser grapples with.
Okay.
He suggests that Hippolytus might represent a type of dying god,
Uh-huh.
a figure common in ancient religions.
Okay.
His death
Right.
and potential resurrection
Yeah.
would symbolize the cycle of nature, just like the King of the Wood.
So we're starting to see these connections emerge.
Yeah.
Ritual combat, figures who die and are reborn,
Uh-huh.
and these symbolic prohibitions.
Right.
A whole different way of looking at mythology.
And to understand it further, we need to dive into one of Fraser's core concepts,
Okay.
sympathetic magic.
Okay.
Imagine a voodoo doll.
Okay.
That's a form of sympathetic magic.
Gotcha.
It's based on the idea that you can influence something else through actions that resemble it or were once in contact with it.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get it.
But examples always help me solidify a concept.
Of course.
Yeah.
Fraser breaks it down into two principles.
Right.
Homeopathic magic and contagious magic.
Okay.
Homeopathic magic is the, produces idea.
Yeah.
Think of rain dances to bring rain.
Right.
Contagious magic, on the other hand, is about things once in contact,
Okay.
remaining connected,
Okay.
even at a distance.
So if you use something that belonged to a person,
Right.
you could magically affect them even if they're far away.
Exactly.
That sounds a bit like science fiction.
It might seem illogical to us,
Yeah.
but Fraser found examples of this belief across cultures.
Wow.
He mentions the Blackfeet Indian belief
Okay.
that using a sharp tool while an eagle hunter is away could cause him to be scratched by eagles.
Oh, wow.
Or a Malagasy soldier's family not killing any male animals while he's at war
Okay.
for fear of sympathetically causing his death.
That's intense.
Fraser argues there's a surprising consistency to this kind of magical thinking.
It definitely challenges our modern understanding of cause and effect.
Yeah.
So how did this belief in magic shape the way societies functioned,
Right.
especially in terms of leadership?
Well, if people truly believed that magic controlled the forces of nature,
Uh-huh.
then the person who could supposedly wield that magic held immense power.
That makes sense.
The magician, the one who could bring rain or ward off evil,
Right.
could become a leader, even a king.
Makes sense if you believe someone holds the key to your survival.
Right.
You'd give them authority.
Exactly.
Was this common across different cultures and historical periods?
Fraser found this dynamic playing out in various contexts.
Okay.
The lines between magician, priest, and king often blurred.
Yeah.
especially in societies where the well-being of the community was deeply intertwined with the forces of nature.
So in Fraser's view,
Mhm.
did magic eventually evolve into something else?
That's precisely what he argues.
Like, did religion grow out of those earlier magical beliefs?
He sees a progression, a gradual shift.
Okay.
Fraser suggests that magic is rooted in a belief in the order and uniformity of nature,
Uh-huh.
but without the intervention of spirits or gods.
Okay.
There's a similarity to modern science in that sense,
Oh, wow.
a focus on cause and effect.
That's not what I expected.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the different ways humans have tried to understand and control the world around them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as people realized the limits of their control over nature, they began attributing those uncontrollable events to something beyond themselves.
Okay.
Spirits, gods, or higher powers.
So magic, in a way, paved the way for religion.
That's Fraser's argument.
As if humans needed a new framework to explain what they couldn't control.
And it's within this evolving framework of belief
Right.
that the role of the king takes on even greater significance.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
What did kings have to do with all of this?
Fraser dives into the concept of the king as a magical figure.
Yeah.
Someone believed to possess supernatural powers and responsible for the well-being of his people and the fertility of the land.
Oh, wow.
They weren't just political leaders.
Right.
They were almost like magical CEOs,
Wow.
responsible for ensuring good harvests and warding off disaster.
That sounds like a lot of pressure.
It was?
Did this belief in the king's magical power lead to any specific rituals or practices?
Absolutely.
Like what?
Their actions were believed to influence natural phenomena,
Okay.
which led to all sorts of taboos and restrictions on their behavior.
Interesting.
These taboos, particularly those surrounding royalty and sacred objects,
Right.
were a way to contain and control the king's power,
Yeah.
which could be seen as both a blessing and a potential curse.
Can you give me some examples of these royal taboos?
Sure.
What were they afraid of?
Well, in some cultures, it was forbidden to touch the king,
Wow.
look at him directly, or even see him eat.
Really?
These seemingly arbitrary rules served to reinforce social hierarchies and protect those in power.
Okay. But they were also rooted in this belief that the king's power was contagious, capable of harming those who got too close.
So it's not just about respecting authority.
Right.
It's about fearing the king's magical power.
Exactly.
Wow.
The king's presence was seen as a force to be reckoned with, something that needed to be carefully managed.
Fraser also talks about this wild concept of the external soul, right?
Yeah, he does.
What's that all about?
This is one of the most intriguing ideas he explores.
Okay.
It's the belief that a person's life force, their essence, can reside outside their body,
Oh, wow.
hidden in an object or animal.
So it's not just our physical bodies that contain our soul.
Right?
A part of us could exist somewhere else entirely.
Precisely.
Whoa.
Fraser cites folktales and myths from various cultures
Okay.
that feature this motif. There's a story of the Indian chief
Okay.
whose life was bound up with a green bird, for instance.
Wow.
If something happened to that bird,
Yeah,
the chief would die. That's a bit unnerving.
it is.
What's the significance of this belief?
Yeah.
Why did it resonate with people?
Fraser suggests it's connected to our fears of mortality
Okay.
and the desire for immortality.
Yeah.
It's a way of imagining that a part of us might live on
Right.
even after our physical bodies die.
It's a comforting thought in some ways.
Yeah.
But also a bit scary, especially when you consider how this belief ties into the role of the king
Right.
and those rituals we were discussing.
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Remember how we talked about the king being sacrificed in some societies?
Right.
Well, the concept of the external soul is often woven into these practices.
Okay.
The king's life force might be believed to be contained in something outside himself.
Wow.
And by killing the king,
Yeah.
or whatever contains his soul, they believed they were releasing that life force back into the world.
So it's not just about killing the king.
Right.
It's about transferring his power, his life essence,
Uh-huh.
back into the cycle of nature. Exactly.
Almost like a way to renew the world itself.
It's a symbolic link between the king's death and the cycle of death and rebirth
Right.
that we see throughout nature.
Yeah.
Fraser draws parallels between this and the ritual killing of vegetation spirits,
Okay.
like the corn spirit, a figure we'll discuss later.
I'm starting to see how these seemingly disparate beliefs and practices from different cultures
Yeah.
are actually connected by this underlying logic.
Right.
It's like Fraser is revealing a hidden language of myth and ritual.
He's piecing together a puzzle that spans cultures and centuries,
Wow.
showing how humans have grappled with the mysteries of life, death, and the forces that shape our world.
That's incredible.
And we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
Wow. Okay. My mind is already buzzing with all these connections Fraser's drawing. It's like he's opening a window into a whole different way of seeing the world. Where do we go from here? We've been talking about the king as this central figure, but Fraser also explores the relationship between humans and the animal world. This is where things get even more complex and intriguing.
I'm ready to dive in. What kind of relationship are we talking about?
It's not a simple one. Fraser highlights this tension between reverence and sacrifice. We see deep respect for certain animals, alongside the practice of killing and consuming them in ritualistic ways.
Can you give me some specific examples to illustrate this complexity?
Fraser talks about the Californian Indians, who had an annual bird feast where a buzzard was revered and then killed. He also mentions the Ainu people of Japan, who had their bear festival, raising a bear with great care and respect, only to then ceremonially sacrifice it.
It sounds almost paradoxical. Why kill something you revere? What was the purpose behind those rituals?
These weren't just any animals. They were specific creatures imbued with special meaning, often seen as representatives of the divine, or embodying powerful forces of nature. Fraser suggests that killing the divine animal wasn't seen as ending its life, but as a way to transfer its power and ensure its continued presence in the community. It's a cyclical view of life and death, similar to what we discussed with the King of the Wood and the concept of the external soul.
So it's almost like they were trying to tap into the life force of these animals, to harness it for their own benefit or to ensure the well-being of the community.
That's a great way to put it. And this belief in the interconnectedness of life extends beyond just food and agriculture. Fraser also uncovers practices of transferring pain and disease from humans to animals.
That's something I've never heard of before. It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel. What did that look like in practice?
He gives some surprisingly specific examples. The ancient Romans, for instance, believed they could cure scorpion stings by whispering to a donkey. And even in more recent times, there were folk remedies for coughs that involved feeding a dog bread with the hair of the patient baked into it.
Wow, that's a wild concept. So they believe the animal would take on the illness, like some kind of magical trade-off?
Exactly. It points to this deep-seated belief in the permeability of boundaries between humans and animals. The idea that what affects one can affect the other. It's a way of thinking that we might find strange. But it reveals a worldview where humans and animals are seen as intimately connected, not separate and distinct.
It's making me rethink how we view our relationship with animals today. We tend to see ourselves as superior, but maybe there's something to be learned from these ancient perspectives.
I think so too. Fraser's work challenges us to consider different ways of understanding our place in the world and our relationship with other living beings.
Okay, my head is spinning with all these interconnected beliefs and practices. It's like Fraser is showing us a whole different reality, one where magic and the supernatural are woven into every aspect of life.
He's peeling back layers of human thought, revealing patterns that connect us to our ancestors in ways we might never have imagined. It's an exploration of the human mind, as much as it is an exploration of ancient cultures.
It makes you wonder how much of that magical thinking still lingers in our modern world, even if we don't always recognize it as such.
That's a great point. We may have abandoned many of the specific rituals Fraser describes, but the underlying human impulses that gave rise to those beliefs haven't disappeared.
Do you think we've simply replaced those ancient forms of magic with other things?
Perhaps. Think about our modern fascination with science and technology. We're still searching for ways to understand and control the world around us, to predict the future, and to overcome the limitations of our physical existence.
It's like we've replaced magic wands with smartphones and potions with pharmaceuticals.
But the underlying desire for control, for mastery over the unknown, remains the same. Fraser's work helps us see these continuities across time, revealing the enduring power of these fundamental human desires.
Fraser also dives deep into the concept of human sacrifice. It's a dark and disturbing topic, but one that seems to have been surprisingly common throughout history. where do we even begin to unpack something so complex and disturbing?
It's a difficult topic to grapple with, but Fraser approaches it with the same analytical lens he applies to other beliefs and practices. He starts by showing just how widespread human sacrifice was, not just in ancient times, but even in relatively recent history. He finds examples from cultures across the globe, each with its own unique motivations and rituals.
It's hard to imagine what could possibly justify such a horrific act. What were some of the reasons people gave for sacrificing humans?
We touched on this earlier with the idea of ensuring the fertility of the land. Many cultures believe that by offering a human life to the gods, they could appease them and ensure a bountiful harvest. But it wasn't just about crops. Human sacrifices were also offered to ward off disease, to achieve victory in war, to honor the gods, and even to ensure the safe passage of the king into the afterlife.
It's a stark reminder of how differently people viewed life and death in those times. Human life wasn't always considered sacred or inviolable.
Exactly. The needs of the community, the desires of the gods, often took precedence over the life of an individual, and the rituals surrounding those sacrifices were often elaborate and highly symbolic, reflecting the complex beliefs and anxieties of those societies.
Can you give me an example of what one of these rituals might have looked like?
Fraser describes how victims were sometimes chosen based on specific criteria, like their age, physical appearance, or social status. They might be treated with a mix of reverence and fear, seen as both individuals and as representatives of something larger than themselves. The specifics varied widely, but the underlying principle was the same. A human life was being offered to appease the gods or to achieve some desired outcome.
It's both fascinating and horrifying to read these accounts. It's like peering into a dark corner of human history, a place where our modern sensibilities about the sanctity of life seem to have no hold.
I understand that reaction. It's difficult to reconcile these practices with our contemporary values, but Fraser encourages us to approach them not with judgment, but with a desire to understand. Even those seemingly irrational acts were often rooted in a deep-seated belief system, a way of making sense of the world and humanity's place within it.
So it's not about condoning these practices, but about trying to see the world through the eyes of those who believed in them.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the human heart, however flawed or misguided, beating within these ancient rituals.
Fraser also explores the concept of the scapegoat, which is a slightly different take on the idea of sacrifice. Can you explain what a scapegoat is and how it fits into this broader discussion?
The scapegoat is a figure, often an animal or a person, that is ritually burdened with the sins or misfortunes of a community and then expelled or killed. It's a way for people to symbolically purify themselves, to transfer their own guilt and anxieties onto something external.
So it's not just about appeasing the gods or achieving a specific goal. It's more about cleansing the community, both literally and symbolically.
Precisely. Fraser sees this as a way for people to cope with feelings of guilt, fear, and uncertainty. By projecting those negative emotions onto the scapegoat and then expelling it, they create a sense of renewal and hope.
It's interesting how these ancient rituals, however brutal they might seem to us, often solved important psychological and social functions.
That's one of the key insights Fraser offers. He helps us see that even the most bizarre or horrifying practices often had a deeper logic and purpose, a way of making sense of the world and finding meaning in the face of chaos and uncertainty.
It's like he's saying that there's a method to the madness, even if we don't always understand it.
Exactly. And by understanding those methods, those underlying patterns of thought, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities of human belief and behavior, both past and present.
This deep dive is really challenging me to think differently about history and culture. It's not just about facts and dates. It's about understanding the stories we tell ourselves, the rituals we create, and the deep-seated desires that drive us.
And that's what makes Fraser's work so relevant even today. He's not just writing about the past. He's offering us a lens through which to view the present and to understand ourselves a little bit better.
We've been talking about these ancient rituals and beliefs, but I'm curious about how they connect to our modern world. Does Fraser see any links between those ancient practices and what we do today?
He absolutely does. One of the most fascinating aspects of The Golden Bough is how Fraser traces these threads across time, showing how seemingly simple customs we might take for granted might hold echoes of those ancient beliefs.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me some examples. What kind of customs are we talking about?
Well, think about the tradition of bringing in the maypole, a custom that's still celebrated in some parts of the world. Fraser sees it as a remnant of ancient tree worship, a celebration of the spirit of vegetation returning to life in the spring.
So something we might do for fun or tradition actually has deeper roots in how people saw the world centuries ago. It makes you wonder how many other customs have hidden meanings we're not aware of.
Exactly. Or consider the tradition of decorating Christmas trees. Evergreen trees like pine and fir held special significance in many cultures, symbolizing life persisting through the winter.
So putting up a Christmas tree isn't just a lay about holiday cheer. It's tapping into a much older idea about life and renewal, a way to connect with those ancient cycles of nature.
Precisely. Even something as simple as telling ghost stories around a campfire. Fraser connects this practice to ancient fears of the spirits of the dead, which were particularly prominent during the darker months of the year.
So even our entertainment choices might reflect those ancient anxieties and beliefs. It's like they're woven into the fabric of our culture, even if we don't consciously realize it.
That's a great way to put it. While these modern customs have often lost their original religious meaning, Fraser suggests they still fulfill a psychological need. They help us connect with something larger than ourselves, mark the cycles of life and death, and feel a sense of continuity with the past.
It's like those ancient impulses are still there, just expressed in different ways, through different rituals and stories.
And Fraser takes this idea even further. He argues that traces of magical thinking linger even in our modern scientific minds. Think about common superstitions: knocking on wood, avoiding black cats, throwing salt over your shoulder.
I have to admit, I'm guilty of a few of those myself. But what's the connection to the golden bough? How do these superstitions relate to what Fraser was exploring?
Fraser suggests that these seemingly irrational behaviors reflect the same underlying principle of contagious magic, the belief that we can influence events through seemingly unrelated actions. It's a way of trying to control the uncontrollable, to exert some agency over a world that often feels unpredictable and chaotic.
So even when we think we're being rational, those ancient ways of thinking might still be influencing us on a subconscious level.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it? We like to think we've moved beyond superstition and magical thinking, but perhaps those impulses are more deeply rooted than we realize.
Fraser also suggests that even our dreams can reveal traces of those ancient beliefs and fears. That's really intriguing. How so?
He sees dreams as a window into our subconscious, a place where those primal impulses and anxieties are still alive and well. Think about common dream motifs: flying, falling, being chased, encountering mysterious figures.
I have all those dreams. They can be so vivid and unsettling. What's Fraser's take on them?
He connects them to ancient beliefs about the soul leaving the body during sleep, encounters with spirits in the dream world, and the dangers that lurk in the unseen realm. For Fraser, dreams are not just random firings of neurons, but a way for our subconscious to process those ancient fears and desires that still resonate within us.
It's like the golden bough is giving us a roadmap to understanding not just ancient cultures, but also our own minds, those hidden depths that we don't always have access to in our waking lives.
That's a powerful way to put it. By recognizing these echoes of the past in our present, in our customs, our superstitions, even our dreams, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. We begin to see the interconnectedness of all things, the ways in which the past continues to shape the present, and the enduring power of those fundamental human desires that drive us all.
This deep dive has been a revelation. I never imagined that a book about ancient rituals could be so relevant to modern life.
Fraser's work is a testament to the enduring power of myth and ritual, and to the ways in which they continue to shape our thoughts, our beliefs, and our behaviors.
We've journeyed from ancient Roman groves to modern-day superstitions, all thanks to the golden bough. What a wild ride.
It's been an incredible journey of exploration. But before we conclude, I'd like to leave you with one final provocative thought from Fraser.
I'm all ears.
Fraser reminds us that even seemingly irrational beliefs often have a deep logic and purpose. They are attempts to make sense of the world, to grapple with the mysteries of life and death, and to find a place for ourselves within the grand scheme of things.
So we shouldn't dismiss those beliefs as mere superstition, but try to understand the human needs they fulfill, the anxieties they address, and the hopes they embody.
Exactly. What can we learn from these ancient ways of thinking? How might they shed light on our own beliefs and behaviors, even those we consider rational and modern? That's something for all of us to ponder as we continue our own journeys of discovery and understanding.
I'll definitely be doing some soul searching after this deep dive. Thanks for guiding us through the golden bough. It's been an incredible journey.
The pleasure was all mine. And remember, as Fraser reminds us, the exploration of human thought and belief is a never-ending quest. So keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep discovering the wonders that lie hidden within ourselves and the world around us.